Listen, nearly a year ago, you were named president of LU. How's it going? What are you fitting into this role the way you had imagined?
Yeah, it's going great. You know, you always wonder. It's a big job. You're moving. We were well settled where we were. Loved the place where we were. We were at a similar school in terms of mission and student and impact and all that, but significantly smaller. So the question, that we had was, how do you make the jump from a much smaller organization, even though the mission is the same, to a much larger one? And what I discovered here is, I'm a two-time alum of Liberty University, so I'm very familiar with the mission, very familiar with Dr. Falwell's vision and all that. And when I got here, what I discovered is, yes, it's larger, yes, it's more complex, but you have a lot more help. And the thing that I've seen is that Liberty University, Dr. Falwell used to say all the time, if it's Christian, it ought to be better. And so what I've discovered is that there is a whole campus full of colleagues that I have who've been long committed to that thing. The Bible says, whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. And that sense is here. And so I jumped in, at Liberty, you have in every shop, every department, you have talent which is stacked 2 and 3 deep. And so a lot more work, a lot bigger and more complex situation, but a lot more help, and they're committed. So yeah, I think the transition's been pretty well.
What has surprised you the most about Liberty University since you have become president?
I was connected through the years. I'm a two-time graduate, as I said, and I was endorsed to the Air Force chaplaincy by Liberty Baptist Fellowship. So I would come to campus every few years for a conference, for training, that kind of thing. And at my last institution, there was a longtime Liberty member who now serves at my last institution, and he would say to me often, "There's just something special about Liberty." And I would say, "Yeah, really, there's something special about every place." But when I got here, just the student body, the spiritual life, the hand of God being on this mountain is a palpable thing that you can feel. And so I knew it was coming. I wasn't overly surprised, but the fact that it has happened and has been so palpable has probably been my biggest and most pleasant surprise.
Along those lines, what surprised you the most about Lynchburg and this area, Central Virginia?
Yeah, I'm a beach person. I married a beach person, and I'm a beach person, and we moved from Charleston. But the mountains are amazing. I spent some time in other places near mountains in my Air Force career, but we've really enjoyed it. The thing that Lynchburg has, it is, from my experience, it is the case that Lynchburg loves Liberty, and Liberty loves Lynchburg. I think there's this synergistic relationship. Lynchburg is good for Liberty. Many of our students come here from all around the country, in some cases all around the world, and decide that they love the community and want to stay. And so it's been great. We love the area. We love the people. They're friendly. I moved from Charleston, so the traffic isn't nearly as bad here as it is in Charleston. So yeah, we've really enjoyed it.
And how do you keep that synergistic feeling going with city leadership and other bodies that do work in the area?
Yeah,
from a
one of the
standpoint?
They had a really good plan upon my arrival, and so I've gotten to meet. I got to meet very early on. I got to meet city leaders. I've met the mayor, and I've met the city councilman. I've met the city manager, Winter Benda, and so all of these people who have come. I've met local legislators from the surrounding counties, and they all really have a common theme, and that common theme has been we need each other. And so that's the thing that I've seen, is that we do need each other. Without Lynchburg and their support, without the churches, without the community partners that we have, Liberty wouldn't be what it is. And I hope the reverse is true. I hope that across Lynchburg people understand that Liberty does bring a spiritual fervor, that we do bring lots of enthusiastic students, we bring taxpayers to the table, all of that, who are involved in their communities in all kinds of ways, and not just on campus. And so I see it really as one large community, and we're very excited to be here.
There's a lot of growth on this campus. Is it sustainable? Buildings are going up, it seems, left and right. And is there anything on the horizon that you can talk to us about?
Yeah, oddly enough, I just left a strategic planning meeting, and so one of the first things that we did upon arrival is establish the fact that as a military member for all those years, a military leader likes to say, take that hill. But the most important thing about take the hill is which hill you're going to take. And so what we've done, aided by the superb strategic planning team at Liberty University and technology and all of that Liberty has, we have orchestrated for the most part, a bottom-up approach to strategic planning. And so we have collected all kinds of data, and our strategic planning team has narrowed it down to some fairly good buckets. And the senior leadership team now is going through that with a fine-tooth comb and making sure that here, by the time our next board meeting comes, the first part or second week of April, we will have a pretty good outline for our board. And then in August, my plan, my hope, my prayer is that we would be able to unveil this strategic plan. So we're focused on, for instance, how large should Liberty University be on campus? How many residential students should we have? How large should we be online? Those kinds of things, we're tackling all of those questions.
Yeah, I know you had talked about enrollment. Are you going to grow the enrollment? You talked about retention.
That's right.
And graduation rates as well. Is that part of the strategic plan?
Absolutely. In higher education, the things that really matter the most, and the thing that ties every higher education institution together are enrollment, retention, and graduation rates. I don't have to tell you that, as I've said often, the business model of a college or a university is based in no small part on the birth rate 18 years ago. And so we can only pick from those students who were born 18 years ago and are graduating high school, and not all of them want to go to college, or at least not yet. And so the pool of high school graduates who want to go to college is getting smaller. And so we do compete against other universities and colleges, for those students. So a lot of what we get to do is focus on enrollment, but our question is not so much quantity, but quality. And so we want to make sure we have the right kind of student who comes, and we want to make sure we give every student who shows up here the kind of experience that they can only get at Liberty University. And so enrollment is critical, retention, and once they get here, how do we keep them? And unless they graduate and take full advantage of the college experience, they're never going to have the kind of life that we hope that they do have.
Can you share a nugget from the strategic plan? You haven't said, but can you give us one thing that you really want to focus on?
I will say this. In fact, we spent a lot of the morning talking about this. Our initial goal will be to increase enrollment 10% on campus. And so we think that with this 10% enrollment growth, we think that we already have the infrastructure in place that can handle that. We're about to complete a new dorm here in just the next few months. We're about to finish a new parking deck with 1,550 parking spaces. We just opened a brand new, I'll call it a chow hall because I'm a military guy, but a dining facility that can handle that number and probably then some. But we want to make sure that we get to that point first before we begin the process of building, too many more buildings. And so again, we're just trying to do it wisely, smartly, in a way that doesn't diminish the experience of the students that we already have on campus.
Something that Ryan and I talked about a little bit, he made me aware that one of the things that you would like to see happen is making Liberty University the destination spot for employment. How do you plan on doing that?
That's right. Our HR director, executive vice president, he likes to refer to us as we want to be an employer of choice. We want to make sure that any individual who works here is, that they thrive here, not just survive. We want to be more than just a paycheck. We want to be a place where people have meaning and purpose and value. And so we're working with the Best Christian Workplaces Institute, and we work with them. They've done a survey already that gave us sort of a baseline of where we are. Mm-hmm. And they run a model that they call Flourish, and so Flourish is an acrostic. Fantastic teams. How do you make sure you have the right kinds of teams that are working not just at the senior level, because the most important people aren't at the senior level. The most important people are doing the work all over the campus, faculty and staff, inside buildings and outside buildings. So fantastic teams, life-giving work. Outstanding talent. How do we make sure that we are the kind of place that attracts the best talent in the country who are called to do this kind of work? Uplifting growth. That's developing those who come to make sure that, they may come green, they may come seasoned, but how do we make them better? R is rewarding compensation. Are we as a university paying people consistent with what an industry standard ought to be? Inspirational leadership is the I, sustainable strategy is the S, and then healthy communication. And so when you put all of this together, if we can have that kind of workplace, then we think we'll be doing the kind of thing that would at least have us be considered to be an employer of choice.
You ascended to the role of president after some tumultuous times for the university. How did you balance your decision to take this job with some of the things that were happening in the past few years? Yeah,
I am and always have been a huge fan of Liberty University. Were it not for Liberty having the kind of education that I needed as an active duty Air Force second lieutenant living in Florida, Liberty figured out a long time ago, before there was an internet, they figured out how to do accredited extended education in a way that, because it was accredited, the Air Force would pay for it. And so I have this huge debt that I felt I owed to Liberty, because Liberty had done so much for me. So I big fan of Dr. Falwell for all those years. Jerry Falwell Jr. You look around this school, as I do every day, and I think, man, look at all the phenomenal things that God used Jerry Falwell Jr. to do. And so this campus is a testament to his phenomenal work. The 3-year period that Dr. Jerry Prevost was here was, I think, a gift to whomever the next president would have been. Whatever tumult may have happened, Dr. Jerry Prevost being here those 3 years not only steadied the ship, but also showed students and faculty and staff and community leaders and supporters that the Liberty University they knew is still the same. We're still training champions for Christ, the same thing that we've been doing since 1971. If you just pick any random student during any era of Liberty, you'll meet people from 40 and 50 years ago who tell me stories about there just being a mud hole and this just being a dream, to students who were here during any other season of Liberty's life. The student experience has always been world class, and none of that ever changed. And so the great thing is, when I arrived, everything was pretty well settled, and we just kept moving.
Well, you've told the staff that you would like to change the culture
Yes.
at the university. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah, I'll just refer back to the Flourish model. So Dr. Falwell used to say, if it's Christian, it ought to be better. I've just added a corollary to that. If it's Christian, it ought to be Christian. And what I mean by that is that we should act like Jesus Christ. If you're a supervisor at Liberty University, whether you're a grounds supervisor or you're a dean of a college or you're a back office accountant, you should be a Christian yourself. You should be growing in your faith. You should understand that the fruit of the Spirit is something that, as you mature in your faith, ought to be reflected more and more and more in your own interactions, both at home and at work. And so really what we want to do is just live our faith in the workplace and do it in a way that the expectation is that everybody lives like Christ in the workplace.
Does that have anything to do with wanting to revise the Liberty Way? I know that people are looking at, what does that mean? You want to change things? You want to make it what?
Yeah. You know, one of the skills of leadership is knowing what to change and when to change it. And so some things that people say, you got to change this right now. An effective leader says, well, not yet. You know, because there's tradition and history and all that. So
because you've probably heard that some people say, well, there's two kind of Liberty Ways for the university, one for the students and then one for everybody else.
Yes, and that's a foul. Yeah, and so what I would say that the Liberty Way really is the Bible. And so if you're a student, you should be living your life consistent with the principles of Scripture. If you're a faculty member or a staff member or an administrator or a grounds worker or a coach, whatever you are, that should be the thing.
So are you trying to create alignment where there wasn't?
Well, I don't know what there was or there wasn't, but what I do know is there should be alignment. You know, my Christian life should be no different than a student's Christian life, and so that's kind of the starting point.
Okay.
Now, the Liberty Way is a student honor code.
Right.
We live in community, and they live in close quarters, as you know, in these dorms, and so. In times past, this is my description, nobody else's.
Right.
In times past, I think the Liberty Way probably was seen more as a legalistic document. You know, there's a violation here, and you get so many points, and after so many points, you know, we discipline you. We are changing it philosophically. You know, no behavioral standards will change, but we're changing it philosophically to be more of a grace-based developmental process. So when discipline happens, it's so that a student can become more like Christ. All right, and so I'm sure when the Liberty Way 2.0 is rolled out in June, I'm sure it'll be a learning curve. I'm sure we'll learn things along the way, but we hope to get to a place, yes, where faculty and staff live by certainly very similar standards in the Christian life than we expect of students.
And that's coming in June?
Liberty Way is being unveiled in June.
Okay.
That's right.
Right now, the university is embroiled in a Clery Act investigation,
yes.
Right? Basically, the Department of Education has said that Liberty University isn't doing enough to protect students, listen to students when it comes to sexual assaults that may take place, that crimes are not being reported the way they should be. How do you see this going on? Because they're talking about a fine potentially in the neighborhood of $40 million, which would be the largest Clery Act fine in the history of the Department of Education with this.
Yeah, I would just simply change your verbs from present tense to past tense. And so it certainly was the case in times past when Liberty wasn't doing the things that it should have been doing. We as a university, in terms of Clery geography and counting crimes and reporting them in the way that the Department of Education requires them to be reported. But those days are past. And so as soon as the university learned that we were having these difficulties, Dr. Prevost and the staff immediately formed a task force. We hired outside consultants. They came in. There was a recommendation, a list of recommendations that were 99, and our Clery Act expert here on our staff, she says actually there were more than 100. And so what I would say is that Liberty University, as soon as we found out that we had challenges, we began immediately to fix them. And what I can say to you now is that for any student, we have a safe, supportive, and neutral process by which if a student has an issue or a challenge that they need to report, they should report it. We have invested more than $10 million in the Clery Act and the safety of our students. We have all kind of technological advancements that we've made, all kinds of things. And so what I can say now, in terms of present tense now, is that I would suggest to you that our Clery Act and Title IX protocols and processes and procedures are a benchmark. And I would invite anybody to come and speak with our compliance staff. And I invite you to do that if your time allows. But we can speak about all of those things. And so what was, and what is, I can say to any parent, any student, that you need not worry if you come here.
And that includes Title IX cases as well, because
that's right.
The university has marketed itself as one of the safest universities, college campuses in the nation.
Yeah, and again, I would just say, if you look at our program now, which has been now about 2 years in the making, it's a mature, developed, robust program that we can show, every T crossed, every I dotted, and should there come a time when a fine is announced and all that stuff happens, we will say it's a new day at Liberty. Whereas many schools wait until all of that happens before they start, by the time the announcement is made and the fine is announced, we will say, well, all those things have been fixed.
What you're saying is you're being very proactive,
yes,
rather than waiting to be reactive.
Absolutely. And so you take a snapshot 5 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be all that impressed. You take a snapshot today of our program, and one of the best in the country.
Jerry Falwell Sr., Jerry Falwell Jr. were very steeped in politics, from the moral majority to
Sure.
Jerry Falwell Jr. showing his support for a former president. Is that what you want of Liberty University? Will Liberty University, under your watch, be as involved in politics as they were?
Well, we are an academic institution, but as an academic institution, we have a storied past, and we've always been a place where cultural impact happens. And so the way I describe politics, now I'm a retired Air Force general officer, and so one of the unwritten rules of the large majority of general officers retired is we don't endorse political candidates one way or the other. It's just part of the unwritten code. But when I think about politics, when I think about Liberty University, we're going to be very interested in voter registration, for instance, because one of the things that when we think about what is a champion for Christ, who is it? They ought to be a critical thinker, a problem solver, one who understands data, one who knows how to use technology, one who communicates well, but also a engaged citizen. And so every citizen views politics through a certain lens, a certain worldview. We view it through a biblical worldview. We believe that all humans are made in God's image. We believe that human flourishing happens when people align themselves with God's plans for their life. So when I think about politics, politics is way downstream from what's important. The first thing that I look at is people. God has called me to be a servant of people. That's what Liberty does. We raise up human beings to go and change the world. But people have to be, they flourish best when they operate consistent with principles. And these principles, we argue, based on thousands of years of pretty solid history, we argue that these principles are biblical, that affect every area of life. Principles are enacted by policies. And so what do legislators do? I was in Richmond just yesterday talking to legislators about all kinds of things. But principles are enacted by policies, and policies come to the fore through politics. And so we will be focused on people and principles and policies, and we will encourage people to vote their conscience in a way that they can elect the people who would enact the principles and policies that they think are best for the country.
So does that mean, as Liberty University's president, you'll be endorsing a particular presidential candidate over another?
I will not. Yeah, I will not. I don't think it's a president's role. I don't think it's a retired general officer's role. I don't think it's a pastor's role. And so I spent a long time as an Air Force chaplain. And so I understand the fine line that one must take. I was able to be myself in the military. People knew I was a conservative evangelical. They knew who I believed in the Lord Jesus Christ. They knew I believed that everyone's a sinner in need of a Savior. Everybody knew that about me. But they also knew that I allowed everybody else to be who they were. Now, part of what we do here at Liberty is try to persuade. As I said before, Liberty has always been a place of deep cultural impact, and we will continue to do that, but we'll do it in the principles and the policies realm. We'll talk about what policies are good, and then people can vote their conscience.
I just have two more questions for you. There are some in politics who say that Liberty University and maybe other Christian institutions are under attack. Especially when it comes to what's going on with the Clery Act.
Sure.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that Liberty University is under attack from people who don't see things the way you would hope they would?
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. I think if you look at not just Liberty, but if you look at every kind of conservative, theological, biblically oriented institution, I think the positions that we hold are under attack, and so we advocate for those positions. We persuade based on what we think the people ought to live consistent with to flourish as humans. But yeah, I think it is the case, and it's been our experience to a large extent in dealing with the Department of Education, just the way that they dealt with us relative to the way they have dealt with others in the past. We have become very, very familiar with all the reports that have been written, and we look at the way we were dealt with versus the way they had dealt with others. Yeah, I think it's
there's something there.
I think it's undeniable. Yeah, I think it's undeniable.
Maybe ending with more of a fun question for you. Liberty football did some big things this past season, right? Fiesta Bowl appearance. The program's doing very well. What has being on the stage, the national stage, done for the university in that way?
Dr. Falwell, from the very beginning, understood that athletics in a university context is a critical factor. And so from the very beginning, in fact, if you read his autobiography, he lists 10 principles at the very back of the book. And he talks about athletics, and then he puts a comma and he says, including football. And so way back when he was thinking about this university, football was on his mind. And so what we've seen this past year is the fact that, as you said, football has put Liberty University on the national stage for the best of reasons. And so when people see that Champions for Christ can go on the field and compete 13-0 in the regular season, and then the opportunity to be the highest ranked Group of 5 team to compete in a New Year's Six Bowl, it's big. It's big for Lynchburg, it's big for Liberty, it's big for our alumni base, it's big for our partners, and it's big for prospective students, because they can know that if you come to Liberty, you're going to have the best of all worlds. You're going to have the best music programs and drama programs, you're going to have the best faculty, you're going to have the best athletics, you're going to have the best facilities, and you're going to have the best spiritual life opportunities at Liberty in ways that most universities really don't even think about. And we just have followed our founders' path to do all those things really, really well.
All right. Dr. Costin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It was an honor.
Mine as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the ABC 13 YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos and live coverage and local stories, click to subscribe and download our ABC 13 News app.